At a very recent show in Mexico, the Hong-based rapper Jackson Wang doubted whether even people would come to his show. Eventually, on the show day, he ended up on a full house with almost 25,000 people hearing, cheering, and showing love to him. One of his music videos made 86.7 million views on the 88 Rising YouTube channel. If Jackson made music on his own or under any other record label, probably such a feat would have only been a dream. At 88 Rising, we are on a mission to bring more such Asian talents on the global stage so that their fans can show the love they truly deserve. And throughout this presentation, we'll tell you how we create more such success stories of Asian talents. Good morning, everyone. This is Motasim representing University of Dhaka. Along with me, I have Mashrif, Shubhashish, and Abir. Without further ado, let's dive in.
Let's try to understand the identity of 88 Rising by looking at their logo. 8 can mean infinity, but it can also mean luck, while the upward arrow is a representation of growth. And guess what? 8 itself is a lucky number in a lot of Asian cultures, and all of the elements of 88 Rising have heavy connotations to what is culturally important for Asian people. So far, 88 Rising has functioned as a record label, artist management company, media company, and marketing company, all encompassed into one, which we believe is an important cue for us moving forward. The company was founded by Sean Miyashiro, someone who has extensive knowledge of the Asian music industry. The operations so far are heavily dependent on his keen eye for talent and marketability. Most of the popular artists on their portfolio, including Higher Brothers, Rich Brand, and Joji, were all onboarded on Sean's behest. These are also some of the most popular Asian artists whose careers have boomed over the last few years. Overall, 88 Rising wants to be the arbiter of Asian cool. Asian culture is underrepresented in the realm of hip and pop culture, and this is where the company seeks to intervene. The larger vision of Sean Miyashiro is to be the vice for Asian culture. While that might not be immediately possible due to limited capacity, it definitely is another important cue as the company expands. If you look at the market for record labels, 69% of it is in the hands of the big three players that includes Sony, Universal, and Warner. And all of these three have launched Asian music-focused sub-labels after seeing the success rising. This, we believe, is a threat. To further understand the market, let's have a look at its process flow. Traditionally, music changes hands from artists to record labels to distributors to retailers that typically include digital service providers who have direct access to consumers. Recently, DSPs like Spotify have started making direct revenue sharing contracts with artists, providing greater freedom, which at the moment also poses another threat. Moreover, 88 Rising only has access up to the production level, whereas major record labels have their in-house distributors as well. However, in the status quo, music is easy to create, but it is extremely difficult to reach audiences as an individual in a sea of competition. But the problem with record labels remains persistent, which is limited freedom and control over own content for artists. Owing to these pain points, the record label industry is also changing. In terms of distribution, where labels were indispensable in the past, self-intermediation and other alternatives are becoming increasingly available. Revenue streams for artists isn't limited to live shows and record sales either, but have increased to digital sales and brand endorsements as well. Growth pace is faster, and there's a declining trend of reliance on record labels. Over to Abir.
Sure. All right. So now there have been certain opportunities in the market that have impacted Asian audiences and artists. With the rise in music shows translating into a growth in Asian YouTubers and Asian representation in media for the 2 billion and counting Asian millennials, surely there are growth opportunities in the market. However, to this day, Asians are represented as nerdy, one-dimensional characters in Western media. Also, Asians are only ruling the Asian market. According to a 2017 survey by the New York Times, the only Asian group or individual among the top 50 most watched music artists was BTS. So what are the problems that 88 Rising is facing? With Sony, Universal, and Warner Brothers now targeting the Asian market, there is a rise in competition.
With close to 200 employees, 88 Rising has a limited operational capacity. Also, the company targets such a niche market of Asian hip that it cannot be sustainable in the long run. So we can see that when it comes to expanding the market, increasing operations, or reaching diverse audiences, 88 Rising faces systemic growth obstacles. So 88 Rising can take several growth decisions here. They can expand into new forms of media like movies, etc., promoting Asian growth. However, that runs the risk of diluting the brand and a huge need for resources. Staying within Asian rap in the long run also makes sense for 88 Rising as it is their comfort zone with established market dominance. However, staying in such a niche market is a very risky move with a rising competition. What 88 Rising should do is leverage its existing audience pool and processes to expand to new genres of music. Hence, 88 Rising stays in its comfort zone with room for calculated risk. Now, we don't want 88 Rising to expand to literally every music genre out there. After judging the marketability of the genres and how aligned they are with the brand, we have selected electronic dance music or EDM, hip hop, trap, pop, and funk as the genres where 88 Rising can expand to.
Presenting to you our big idea, empower artists, engage audience. By doing this, we want to achieve two things on a high level. First, we want to popularize the concept of Asian pool by bringing in more rising talents on stage and connecting them with a pool of large audience. Currently, 88 Rising, the company itself is at the center of branding. We want to shift that focus to our artists and make them our heroes because we believe without our artists, we are nobody. We want our fans to say we're going to a Joji concert, we're going to a High Brothers concert instead of saying going to our 88 Rising concert, thereby empowering our artists. Next, we want to engage and expand our audience base, the community of Asian music lovers, the community of cool and hip, by creating more touch points and building connections between our artists and the audience, and thereby giving them the experience they can remember. So by empowering artists and engaging our audience, we can truly popularize and expand Asian food concept and within and beyond Asia. So we want to bring our big idea to life by implementing cultural diamond model headed by 4 C's: content, creators, consumer, and community. Let's break it down further. Creators create content, and once that is ready, it needs to flow back to the consumers. The two crucial steps here are production and distribution. We want to ensure that our artists can do it better than ever. This side of the diamond, the upper side, is where we empower our artists. We want to give them more control over their content. On the other side of the diamond is where we engage our audience. This is where we, 88 Rising, bring together our creators and community through events and activation. Unlike regular events, our shows will have a core focus on highlighting the Asian culture, artists, and the community. Moreover, we want our consumers to show the sense of belonging to community by using merch that symbolizes, again, the Asian culture as well as their love towards the artists. How we execute on all of this will be explained later part of the presentation by Abid. To achieve operational excellence and growth in our business, we are essentially restructuring our internal and external business operation through these 4 business units. For production and distribution, we want to keep doing it in-house. The production is really the most important part of the process, and hence it will be headed by our CEO, who has extensive experience in successfully doing so for artists like Joji and High Brothers. For the distribution, we'd hire a new lead, Luke of Fritis. We want to retain maximum control over these 2 processes to maintain the maximum quality. For events and merch, we want to outsource most of the operations. For events, we'll partner up with third parties but we'll have a common event guideline in line with the brand guideline of 88 Rising to ensure these events represents 88 Rising, the Asian culture, and the community in the right manner. For merch, we'll also hire a new lead. This restructuring will allow 88 Rising to be able to scale up without much bottleneck in the future. Over to Amit to explain the detailed part of our plan of action.
The achievement of the 4C model requires us to intervene in the intersections of it. Let's start off with events and partnerships. If you take a look at the 4C model, this is where creators interact with communities. It is concerts, brand endorsements, and other forms of partnerships that are made here. For 88 Rising, its aggressive self-branding approach has neglected these artists. Head in the Clouds, take for example Head in the Clouds. This year it had over 20 different artists, yet the show is branded as the best of 88 Rising, and that is a problem. For artists, especially if you're not as sensational as Joji, you are left wondering if this is even your concert to begin with. On the other hand, communities see these as 88 Rising concerts. While that is nice in concept, the only equity generated is towards 88 Rising. artists are left underserved. And underserved artists mean less value offered by the label to these artists. With the rising threat of similarly positioned music sub-labels, as explained before, this is something to keep in mind when moving forward, that we are not offering the same value anymore to the artists. At the same time, at the same time, regardless of how well personified 88 Rising will be, it will never meet the same hype of an artist. Artists are individuals, and individuals can better connect to other individuals. Brand collaborations that feature the artists or tours with artists as headliners and docuseries regarding these artists can generate much larger equity at large. As a result, 88 Rising can serve artists better. They are genuinely valuable. On the other hand, communities rally harder. Think of it. The Taylor Swift fan base will always sing her songs harder than her record label's fan base. The same logic applies here. Up next is distribution. This is the process of delivering content to consumers. In the past, this meant traditional channels such as record shops, CDs, mixtapes, and whatnot. Today, this is mostly digital channels, YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, all of that. But however, due to digital distribution, it's also become easy for artists if they are not allowed by their labels, they often attempt to disintermediate, like make they get distribution. Honestly, artists would rather self-distribute, considering the royalties involved. So while our competitors might have stronger in a traditional sense, 88 Rising should focus on allow this hosting to happen. This is the exact has been the existing network of 1.6 million on 88 Rising has been serving as a supplement to these artists. And this is something that works. Therefore, let's not go out of our way to fix something that works, but rather focus on making it better. Up next is symbolism. These are objects that drive consumers into fans and drive communities to become. Typically, this refers to form of engagement, of course, the storytelling. 88 Rising is limited to Asian artists, which then pivots to the music. You hear of R&B artist and then listen to his music. Rich Brian, an Asian rapper, and then listen to his music. That's it. When you look at the merchandise, there's also not much thought put into it. It is typically a stylized logo of the artist or the label, and we think that's not enough. Therefore, consumers are less prompted to identify as fans because, hey, being a fan is not a good story. Taylor Swift is relatable because everyone has. Therefore, we believe that people for communities. 88 Rising means nothing, and neither does Joji. T-shirts are any other T-shirts. Attempts at creating a collective of Asian artists are only ever truly appreciated by music enthusiasts or case competition participants who have to solve cases on it. Communities are not driven in this manner. Therefore, we believe that connecting artists is the way to go. When you communicate Rich Brian's deep roots in Indonesian culture, and an artist, but a purpose, a story, and that in itself, for a consumer, this also means meaningful interaction. And finally, production and content. It involves creative direction, music mastering, AVMV production, and everything in between. In the status quo, artists are locked into a 360 partnership. If you're good enough to be 88 Rising, you need 88 Rising entirely. This is the problem as it represents a barrier to entry. Is my internet there? Okay. For creators, this presents an added layer of thought. It's hard to decide on a life partner and harder to decide on who you will be sharing your money with for your whole career. For content, this is the leading reason behind the dry pipeline. In India, the biggest competitor of 88 Rising would be T-Series. T-Series is sensationally big, and they produce at least 3 to 4 full-length Bollywood songs every week. When you're fighting for share of mind, you need to be present and you need to be consistent in the way you post. And in the status quo, 88 Rising is not producing enough music. Therefore, our solution is adopting a more license-fire approach to partnerships. These can also be seen as one-off partnerships. This looks like production deals that don't necessarily equate to being on the 88 Rising talent portfolio. Think of Meteor and how his entire career was built on producing amazing artists indiscriminately. That's what we're trying to build. 88 Rising has the capacity to be bigger than, and as a result, artists can access it easier and content can be acquired easily on scale. With these four factors elaborated, we take a step back and evaluate where we stand. We have successfully built a new process flow that distributor and in favor of DSPs. This is a model they have, we believe. We also push for more policy level changes. Did I get disconnected? Hello? I guess not.
You're still there, but try and keep your line steady.
Yeah. So we also push for more policy level changes. One-off production creates more access, and as a result, more content. Copyright retention options create more liberty for artists. Event commit contracts guarantees exposure, and upfront pay policy creates more competitive standing for us. These could be analyzed more, but they're self-explanatory. The bottom line, we're pushing for more and more artist inclusion in 88 Rising. Why? Because 88 Rising needs to be about the artists. At the same time, the inclusion of these guiding principles also means more services that are oriented towards artist growth in a digital age. From playlists to blogs to artworks, canvases, and social media, these are services that are highly underserved by labels of today. That is something 88 Rising should vie to change.
To monitor and evaluate the growth and success of our business, here are some key performance indicators, both on the artist as well as the audience. And we're going to look into how many new artists we have onboard. We want to look into things like revenue per artist, average lifetime value of our artists, and number of shows that we are doing every quarter, and whether that is increasing or not. In terms of the audience, we want to look into the growth of our audience base, user engagement, and again, the lifetime value in terms of audience as well. And lastly, the March sales goals. We have identified three major risks associated with our strategies. First is the risk of diluting the brand image of 88 Rising, which we believe has a moderate probability and moderate risk. But throughout the careful genre selection like EDM and trap, we have similar to hip hop, we think that we have been listening to our audience and we are giving them what they want, so which will ensure that the brand is not diluted. Second, in terms of rising competition of sub-labels, we differentiate by keeping the artist at the center stage, and that gives them the incentive to stay with us instead of going to other sub-labels where there are so many different artists that does not have a core specific strategy as we do. Third, in terms of difficulty of managing business units, we believe that is a valid risk, but we believe over time that can be resolved as the operations eventually get into a streamlined and smooth process. In a nutshell, we have achieved three things. We have empowered artists by giving them the center stage, making them the hero, and giving them the attention they deserve from our fans. We bolstered artist interaction in events that we host. In distribution, we give our creators both traditional and digital channels. In March, we highlight the artist at the center of the stage at the clothing and the mark that the audience wears. In partnerships, we're doing one-off partnerships to ensure that our creators can continue to reap benefit from our products and partnerships. Next, we have reorganized our business operations, which ensure scalability, flexibility, and efficiency by distributing in the four different business units: production, distribution, events, and March. We believe having this restructuring allows us to not only stay with as a music company, but in future, if you want to say become a whole media company, these restructuring will give us that headroom and the flexibility and the team in place to do that at one point. And lastly, we have reprioritized our strategies to ensure we are spending time and money in things that truly drive our business. In China, 70% of the music revenues come from live performance, comes from events. And that is why we have ensured that events is where we keep our most focus on. 88 Rising is a company that has the true potential to become as big as maybe Warner Bros. Or Sony for Asia or Vive for Asia one day. Throughout our case, we wanted to lay down the foundations within our company and the culture and how we operate, so that someday if we are achieving that level, we have everything ready. That is all from Team Bangladesh. Thank you for listening. Now let's take Asia to be within Asia and beyond Asia. We are now open to questions. Thank you, judges.
Thank you for your presentation. It is now time for the Q&A session. Please make the questions short and concise and leave your thoughts and comments for the feedback session. The 15 minutes countdown starts now. Let's hear the first question. Thank you.
Thanks very much, guys. That was great. Thank you. To kick us off, can I just wanted to ask one thing. So you talk a bit about needing to produce more content, and you know, sort of comparing to some competitors who are, you know, who are pumping out a lot of content. Can you just talk a little bit more about how you plan to do that? Is that, you know, is it to do with attracting more artists or getting them to be more productive, or you know, what's the plan there? How are you looking to to sort of build that roster of output?
Right. Yeah. I'd like to answer that. So I think the way that we want to build that is, Shubhashish, can you go a few slides back into the policy changes? Yeah. Next one. Next one. No, one before. Policy changes. Policy changes. Yeah. Okay. So basically, we've outlined 4 different policies, right? And I think the way to create more content is by having more creators onboarded, right? So at that point, we need to assess how we onboard more creators. And like most things in the world, when you're onboarding other people, the answer is very simple. You need to start providing them with more value. So all 4 of these things, or 4 of these different policies, were prescribed based on problems that artists in the current scenario already have. Let's take a look at, I'll just go by them one by one so that they better explains it. So regarding one-off production, a lot of artists struggle with the fact that they don't want to commit to a label for the rest of their lives, right? They might want to collaborate on an album or a single or something like that. But with 88 Rising, even if you meet the rigorous high standards of good music, this commit might not be something that artists want to make, right? Especially because it's still fairly new compared to other big media brands. We lose out on a lot of different artists at this point. So therefore, we believe a one-off production agreement where 88 Rising simply produces things is something that helps. Second is regarding copyright retention options. Record labels and media companies have multiple forms of revenue. So copyright retention isn't necessarily something that's that important. And in the current status quo, even though labels do have copyright retention, you look at artists bypassing them by simply re-recording it. Look at Taylor Swift's last album, Red, right? That was just a re-recording. Copyrights no longer mattered there because it was a re-recording. So allowing the artist to retain this copyrights could be a potential contract clause that could benefit 88 Rising greatly, especially because this is not something major record labels even consider because they consider themselves as untouchable. Third is an event commit contract. A lot of the times artists, especially newer artists, when they get signed, don't get the exposure that they signed up for, right? Which means that they don't get to perform as much, which means that they don't get to be put out there. So for artists, regardless of the digital royalties and whatnot, the main source of revenue till date is still events. And this is also something that these contracts could mention. And finally is an upfront pay policy, where we believe, where in the typical sense, artists, when they get signed for a label, they don't get paid immediately until the cost is raised, right? So you release an album and most likely you're not making money of that album for like 5 to 6 months. And after that, maybe you start making money. So that in itself is an unreliable way of making money for artists, which is a large reason why artists have to manage like tons of other jobs. We want 88 Rising's artists to be fully committed to their craft. And that's where like we believe these policy changes help. So in a nutshell, all of these policy changes do one thing. They make 88 Rising sound like a better partner to artists. And that's where we stand out competitively and therefore create more content.
Thank you for that. I liked your music genre selection layout and also the new operational process. In terms of the new operational processes and the sort of reimagined process flow,
what kind of financial risks do you see for 88 Rising as a result of what you're recommending?
Right. So, Marshall, do you want to answer that, or should I?
Yes. Can we get to the slide, please? Slide of the new operational flow. Shubhashish, can you get to the slide, please? Okay, so in terms of the new operational units, we want to open 4 different operational units, right? And at large, we want to outsource 2 of these operational units by creating partnerships with event management companies. So for that specific unit, we believe that there is not a high financial risk. However, we want, since we are hiring new business leads for 2 different operational units, there might be some moderate level financial risk related to the expansions in those terms. But we believe that as we increase production, as we attract more artists, and as we manage to expand into new genres through our production unit, we can offset these costs probably within a span of 2 to 3 years.
And just to add to that, the major new thing is in terms of just distribution, and distribution have become very democratized and decentralized due to, like, now music production distribution means basically getting to Spotify, Amazon Music, iTunes, and so forth, instead of like physical production and so forth, right? So we believe the cost of distribution wouldn't be that significant as it was like 10, 15 years ago, right?
Thank you.
Just going back to the expansion of your sort of artist roster, you mentioned early on that there's the threat of the sort of Asian centric sub labels, right, coming from the large legacy players, but you're looking at using upfront payments to artists. And I think you mentioned potentially sort of doing one-off contracts effectively, that maybe people just coming in to do one recording or artist. How does that sort of interplay with that threat of these these large legacy players who have got access to a lot of cash? How do you sort of make those things compete, and to be able to retain some of those those artists that are key to expansion?
Masha, would you like to answer that? All right. So go for, so in terms of competing with this in this players who have which have a lot of cash, we think the key strategy is here by like providing the value that we give to our artists in one end, which gives the artist the incentive to come to us. And in terms of like doing like heavy promotions and so forth, we believe since we are a player originated in the Asian market, originated within the community, we have a it's far easier for us to do a localized community based marketing campaign or so forth compared to what would require for Sony to do the research on the market to get approvals and whatnot, right? We believe it's much easier for us to execute things on a local, on a community based level, which eventually like the cost is much lesser for us compared to Sony and Wolf. And moving forward, like 88 Rising has been pretty successful so far. Moving forward, if the company say wants to raise money through equity or debt, I think we can easily do that based on the numbers that we have right now in terms of our company growth and the future prospect of our company, right? So we believe we should be able to deal with those things while scaling up.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I just wanted to better understand the risks, the 3 risks that you laid out. How comfortable are you with, well, maybe first of all, could you just take us through your mitigation plan or your mitigation strategy? And how comfortable are you that that is robust?
Right. So I'll be answering that. So regarding the first risk, which is diluting the brand image of 88 Rising, we are not necessarily, by dilution, we don't think that this would remove the brand equity that 88 Rising has developed. But the approach to like 88, so let's ask ourselves what 88 Rising's entire brand was. It is a brand that empowers Asian artists, right? To its core, it's that. But 88 Rising brands itself as a cohort in the status quo. Under our model, 88 Rising will be focusing more on artists that would ultimately credit these artists would then ultimately create 88 Rising. So even though we are diluting the existing brand of 88 Rising as an Asian artist cohort, we are branding it as an Asian artist empowerment platform, and we think that's something that's worth it, right? Up next is the rising competition of sub-labels. We've already answered this in the sense that we've shown you how we deliver value differently compared to like sub-levels, the different policy level changes, the different service portfolio, and like the reimagined structure and everything. And as for number 3, the difficulty of managing the new business units, this might be an issue in the early days, but any transition within a company in the early days is always difficult, right? If anything, when you look at the diamond-shaped business units, these are business units that are easily replicable, right? So if 88 Rising can get it right just once, then the next time over, this is going to be something that's easier to replicate. So yeah, that's basically our whole understanding of how we can mitigate this.
And to add to Abir's answer regarding the point number 3, which is difficulty of managing the business units, Sean Miyashiro largely succeeded in this industry because he had extensive prior industry knowledge and a keen eye for talent and production, right? So he has vast experience in the field that he was working in. And on top of that, he is someone who embodied Asian culture. So we believe that if we can onboard new business unit leads who are 1, Asian, and 2, who have extensive expertise and knowledge of the industry, so we believe that we can mitigate the risk in this regard.
Thank you.
Just one quick thing. Have you given any consideration to the use of sort of new technologies, Web 2.0, metaverse, anything like that? Do you think that there's any sort of interplay with your strategies and growth that you could take advantage of those?
Can we get a quick tech pause? I think one of our team members got disconnected. Also, can Abir answer from my laptop? I think he got disconnected.
Fine with me.
Hi, can I receive your question again?
I'm sure. Sure. Just asking if is there any, have you got any consideration to how you can use new technologies like metaverse, Web 2.0, or anything of that nature, and how that could, how that will help or inform your growth plans?
100%, right? So this is something that we've thought about but didn't put in the case because this is far too long term. But we think that there's an immense potential in tokenizing music and turning them into NFTs and whatnot, right? We've seen thousands of artists that have sold entire albums for 10, 20 ETH, which is worth like $40,000-$50,000, right? So we think that's a really nice way of monetization. And with the power of smart contracts, considering that like once an NFT is published, this is traded across the platform, we can start by enforcing royalties where both the artist and like the label both start getting money out of this. So it's a new way for digital distribution, yet there's still a lot of experimentation that needs to be done regarding this, right? Even on another level, there's different platforms on like Web3 that are like pay per stream or like something like that. We do look at the model of Brave where it pays the end user for ads. There's multiple models of like music streaming coming up similar to that. we think those distribution channels are things that should be explored as well. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
So thank you all. The judges will now stay in the room to deliberate.